How long has it been? 1, 2 decades? Look how much you've grown. You have been tracking me for this long? I'm flattered. I have to ask, aren't you tired of chasing after me for so long? I'm sick of you always getting your way. I'm tired of that. But chasing you? Never. Oh, stop, you'll make me blush. Silence followed. She was pleased that he was stumped, but the determined look etched into his frustration upset her. There was more in store than just words. How are we going to do this, boy? She sneered, a sound so repulsive that wiping her nose clean of snot would have complimented it. However, her well kempt appearance and her objectively good looks made the demeaning question all the more undermining. I will destroy you and everything you cared for. Her interest piqued, her eyebrows rose, and her eyes widened. You do realize it includes you, right? I'm counting on it. Color me interested. I ask, how are you going to go about it? Hold on to everything you have while it's still there. The words were ominous, but she hardly considered them a threat. He was a boy trapped in a man's body. She was the object of his obsession, or, in the very least, her destruction was. However, she was involved, and, therefore, save, perhaps, for his own downfall, he was guaranteed to fail. She turned the key to the lock of her apartment. There was something distinctly off. She hesitated, but shook off her nerves and entered her home. A neat pile of chunks and dust awaited her. Her walls, her floors, her cabinets were devoid of furnishings and amenities. She looked over the pile and made out bits of cloth from her couch and bedsheets. Any utensils she found were mangled and ripped apart, making them utterly useless. Somewhere in the mix, she saw a picture she'd taken with the closest of her few friends torn to shreds. Her heart hurt, but she knew it could all be replaced. What got to her was there was no tail wagging or yipping to greet her. Reluctantly, she dug through the rubble. There was little else she could do other than hold her breath and hope she didn't find a body in the mound. Eventually, she was relieved of the notion when the only red stains were traced back to a broken wine bottle that deposited its contents. It was awful. Materialistically, she was ruined, but it could all be replaced after putting in some hours at work. She looked at her phone, the numbers 9 and 1 flashing in her head. She scolded herself for going soft. Her work building was eerie. There were exceptions. People were usually bustling about, entering and exiting the building, doing the same with the parking lot, or walking through the hallways illuminated by the massive windows lining the outer wall. Today, though there were plenty of cars to prove their attendance, she couldn't spot a single soul. Nevertheless, she dusted off imaginary lint from her clothing and entered the building. The halls were quiet, but not silent. There was a low hum, like that of an extensive colony of bees floating in the air. The further into the building she went, the louder the sound, louder and louder until she found the source. The gathering of employees parted, leaving a trail straight to her desk. She didn't need to approach to see the ashen gray color her desk took on. A small part of her wanted to believe it was nothing more than paint, a prank, but the smell gave it away. She'd had stacks of paper, a few pictures, and a work computer. All of it was torched. We checked the cameras. Whoever did this was smart and skilled enough to hack the video feed and replace it with a recording. We almost didn't notice it, but a fly flew by the camera in the same pattern 10 times over. My desk's condition didn't give that away? We knew the cameras had been tampered with. We were hoping that they were maybe just pictures the crooks put in front of the lenses. If that was the case, we might have been able to spot an identifying mark on them. I see. It was an unlikely scenario, but there was a chance. Thank you. I appreciate the effort. Her manager pursed his lips and beckoned her into his office. She was reluctant, contemplating getting a move on before the situation could get into its down spiral, but she followed in after him anyway. This was clearly a personal attack. Do you have any idea who could have done this? No. Always with your secrets. Sam, I'm not trying to hurt you here. I want to see you beat this. I know you do. Thank you. But I don't know who would be after me like this. Samantha put her hands on the back of her neck, emphasizing her apparent stress. If you don't tell me anything, I can't help you. I know nothing. Okay, well, again, it was clearly a personal attack. Despite you seemingly the only one in danger, we can't run the risk of this going too far and others getting hurt. You're suspended until the individual is caught. Don't worry, you'll still get your pay. You have proved yourself more than valuable enough for the company to take care of you in your time of need. I see. That sounds a lot like what you said the first time. I'll stop there. That was different. Yet the words are so similar. Uncomfortable, he shuffled his feet and dipped his head before looking back up at her. Your suspension starts immediately. Go home. And, if it's any consolation, I know you do. Samantha brushed off imaginary dust from her clothing and stepped out into the main workspace. Dozens of staring eyes greeted her. On one of the co-workers' computer screens, and likely on most, if not all, of the other screens as well, was a recording of her and her manager, Jeremy, together after hours. Her discomfort grew. Many of the men, and some of the women, were looking her up and down, realizing the figure she hid beneath her clothes. More discomforting were the looks of disgust, and worse still were the expressions of sympathy. She straightened herself and exited the building. She steadied her breathing and drove to the nearest convenience store. It usually riddled her with disgust when she saw people inhale junk to try and swallow their problems, but now she understood. She cleaned out some of the shelves, loading chips, cookies, and drinks into one of the tiny baskets the store had to offer. She dumped the contents onto the checkout counter. All of it? All of it. The cashier felt her increasing stress and anxiety, and he scanned the items as quickly as he could. Samantha handed him her debit card. He scanned it for her. She typed in her security code, and his look said it all. Miss, I'm sorry, your card has been declined due to insufficient funds. Samantha's shoulders sagged, and her head hung toward the floor. There were two beeps from the price scanner and the sounds of the cash register opening and change being made. Here you go. I'm sorry, this is all I can afford. The cashier handed her one of the drinks and a set of cookies. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Have a nice day, miss. Thank you. She left feeling confused, touched, and guilty. She would have preferred to leave with nothing, but something in her begged for comfort. She sat in her car and took in a lungful of air. A mere moment, yet all the built-up stress was shoved into the corner of her mind. No possessions, no money, and, likely, no job. Samantha had carved out a nice niche for herself, but the necessity to relocate was fast approaching. However, she didn't want to leave the people she met behind. She started her car and drove to Carol's house. Carol was the first person Samantha met when she moved, and they became fast friends. They talked, they laughed, they cried. In the beginning, Samantha felt odd accepting the attachment, but Carol was persistent and eventually coaxed Samantha into opening up. Ease, comfort, neither Samantha wanted to give up. She had to, but not without saying goodbye. Before Carol's house even came into view, Samantha knew something was amiss. The air was tinged with gray, people were on their lawns, peering in the same direction. The closer she came to the source of the smoke, the harder it was to breathe. Carol sat on the lawn opposite her own, hugging her knees as the local fire department hosed down the char that used to be her home. Carol! Samantha parked her car and leapt out of the door. Her arms were outstretched, ready to embrace her friend. Carol shot to her feet and postured herself as if ready for battle. Stay away from me, Ariel. I swear you get any closer and I won't hesitate to beat your shit in. Ariel, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. Your little friend explained everything right before he set my kitchen on fire. You evil, conniving little... I always knew you were hiding something, but I let it go because I thought we were friends. I figured you'd tell me when you were ready. Instead, you used me for cover, and this is how I find out. I lost everything because of you. Okay, Carol, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kept secrets from you, but you have to know I never intended for this to happen. I wouldn't try to ruin you. That's all his doing. Wow, A small part of me still didn't believe what he said, but here you are admitting to it. Jared, Lisa, Isaac, Ivan, Karen, they lost everything too. I don't know if there's any coming back from this. You ruined our lives. Carol, shut up and leave. Nobody wants you. Ariel hopped into her car and drove off, fighting back tears, anger, and guilt. The look in Carol's eyes, a hot, boiling rage, burned away at Ariel's will. She was exhausted and had nothing to redeem her day or set her future on a better course. Then a thought crossed her mind. She pulled over and pulled out her phone and opened up her photos backed up online. Nothing. They were all gone. All her memories with the very people whose lives she'd ruined, gone. She let out a choked sob just as all the information on her phone deleted itself. With what little wherewithal she could muster, she turned on her car one more time. Smoke billowed out from under the hood. Literally nothing left. Ariel bolted from her smoking vehicle and ran as far as her legs would carry her. Between sobs and sniffles, she could hardly draw in a breath, and her legs ached in protest. Nevertheless, she soon found herself at a local park, physically fatigued, but brimming with misery. That's when she heard it, a small crackling sound off to her left. He was there, watching her. Show yourself, you bastard! He stepped out from the lengthening evening shadows, grinning from ear to ear. All of this could have been avoided, you know. I made my mistakes. I knew what I was doing was wrong every moment before it happened, and every bliss and guilt-ridden second during. But it was your mother's decision to take it to the extreme. They're gone because she couldn't control her. I don't care about that. What? My mother was stupid and my father was weak. Like you said, they're gone because of their own decisions. What then? Why go through all of this? Why him over me? What are you talking about? Why did you choose him over me? All he wanted was all he wanted you for was to get what he couldn't get from my mother. I was there too. Why didn't you choose me? I loved you. I saw the way you moved and could hardly contain myself. I heard the way you spoke and you had me enthralled. Had you been with me, all of this could have been avoided. I would have still had my parents. I would have stayed out of every god awful foster home the state had to offer, and you would have had a lover that would have done everything he could to give you everything you ever wanted. Instead, you watched my mother take my father's life, then took hers before she could take yours, all while never giving me a second thought. I watched from beginning to end. I saw that I never once crossed your mind. You're right. I shouldn't have left you. You have every right to be furious with me for that. I knew you loved me. I saw it in your eyes, in your every move. But it wasn't enough. You were too young. You couldn't make me feel the way I wanted to. And my father could? No, he couldn't. There was something missing. He didn't hold me the way I wanted. He didn't look at me with that spark in his eye that I was looking for. He didn't move like someone who cared. I looked to the wrong person, and I knew it as I lay there. Then your mom came in, and it all went to hell. You're right. And you're also right when you say I didn't think about you. I was only concerned with myself, and I know I could never make that up to you. But maybe I could try. Don't think you can weasel your way out of. I still see it in your eyes. The way you move, your feelings haven't changed, have they? Stop. I can't. He clenched his head in his hands. Come on, I don't have a life here anymore. I think it's time to move on. You gave me the opportunity to move on. Start over with me. He released his head from his death grip. You mean it? I do. Come here. She greeted him with open arms. He leaned into her, taking in her tender embrace, her scent, her heartbeat. She took hold of her future and snuffed it out.